You know, as we all know, war is coming. Well, maybe you don't know, but you should know. War is coming. And when we look upon all of these events that's going on around us, there should be, if nothing else, observation-wise, noticing that there are people prepping. Our enemies are prepping. Our so-called frenemies are prepping. Frenemies are those who, say they're with us, but only in words, not in heart. This is why, as you see, when Yahuwah told Gideon to gather the men, to gather the tribes, and those men that showed up were 32,000. But as soon as the question was asked, whosoever is fearful and afraid, let him return and depart early from Mount Gilgad. 22,000 men turned their backs on the rest of them and went home. Again, these are those who say they're with you, brothers and sisters, or with us, but they are not. They like the idea of being included. They like the idea of being celebrated, but they don't like the idea of having to pay the price for victory. You know that sound that you hear playing in the backdrop there is the sound of war. I figured it'd be a good background for the teaching today, because we're going to teach about the war to come and the war that was passed. And as you can see, Yahuwah, as he told to Gideon, he can deliver with many and he can deliver with few. And this is why he started off at 32,000 brothers and sisters and ended up with 300 men. Many of you are familiar with the movie 300, aren't you? Well, the movie 300 was taken, or imitating life, from the story of our forefather Gideon. If you listen to the last message I post or repost on yesterday, you'll remember that, this channel, before it became DFG End of Day Messenger, we called ourselves Gideon's Flight. And it was a name given to me in a vision from Yahuwah, and it was based off of what I just read to you. The story of Gideon. Gideon saw himself, as a victim, but Yahuwah did not see him as a victim. Gideon thought that the Midianites were far too many to defeat. But Yahuwah said, no, they're not when I'm with you. He said, when I'm with you, any battle you fight is worth the fight. In essence, Yahuwah says, I'm worth the battle. And here we come again at another time, not unlike this time. There are many stories throughout our book of warning us, brothers and sisters, what's going to happen in these last days. If you look at the book of Joel, Joel talks about it in chapter 3, remember? He said, take your plowshares and turn them into swords. He said, for the valley of decision is coming. He says that Yahuwah's I'm going to recompense. He said, I'm going to fight. And when I'm done, it's only going to be left a very small remnant. We read about that, what? In 4 Ezra, chapter 8, verse 3, right? The world was made for many, but only a few will be saved. Saved from what? Yahuwah's judgment. What type of judgment? War. Nuclear war, biochemical war, which is poisoning everything, including your bodies, too. Y'all know what I'm talking about, the shoulder thing. And much more. Psychological war, the war of your mind. We talked about spiritual claustrophobia, which is an actual word, by the way. But it's a word that details that a person trapped in their own mind. The heathen Joyce Myers had a book years ago called Battlefield of the Mind, of the mental. And this is what's happening with many in YASHAREL. Again, they can't even get out of the fear that their own mind. And this is why 22,000 of our brothers and sisters ran when war came. When it was time to go and fight and really, as they say, put your money where your mouth is, they ran. There's a saying, and I know who said it, but I won't quote his name. He says, you don't know who's naked, or you never know who's naked until the tide comes in. Like the water tide. So you don't know who's swimming naked until the tide comes in. You really don't know who's with you, brothers and sisters, until the fight starts. And then you'll see, the slow but surely pulling away, pulling back. Proverbs 28:1 says that, the wicked flee when no one is pursuing them. So what do you think they're going to do when there is someone pursuing them? When this war that's prophesied in this Bible actually comes? Let us not forget, what did Isaiah tell us in Isaiah chapter 3? He said what? Our men would die what? In these streets, and also our men would die by the sword. When you see the word sword in the book, it's talking about war, brothers and sisters. War is a reality that we will have to face in these last days. And I'm not talking about being a part of somebody's military, so forth and so on. It's much more complicated than that. Because the war that we're going to fight is the war, again, of the end of times. The last war. There will be no other war in the time of men. And it's a foreshadowing of what's going to come, what you see happening right now. You see all this conversation going on all over the world, this country is attacking that country, and, the Strait of Hormuz is now unblocked. And as I said to my brothers and sisters, if y'all don't know, what is the Strait of Hormuz, then, please, become more attentive to what's going on internationally. And you can do that watching this teaching, this channel right here. I'm not telling you to go turn on the media. The watchman job is to watch. The men on the wall, those are the men that you should be listening to, not the men who sit down and they don't know the difference between the battle of a basketball team and a battle of bullets. And they're more interested in the battles of which one of their teams going to fight on a football field or win on the football field than what's going to happen to their children. Again, because of what institutionalized, we have become so inundated with things that are irrelevant that the things that matter most, they're not even thinking about being prepared for it. And this is why, of 32,000 men, 22,000 ran the first time that they were challenged by the leader, Gideon. Gideon just asked a simple question. Who are those who are afraid? Who are those who are fearful? And they ran. They were nothing like our King David. What did David say? The strength of Yahuwah teaches my hands to war, my fingers to fight. Psalms 144. But Israel will say that. These men will talk that. But when it comes down, brothers and sisters, to actually, again, when it comes down for them to do what they say they're going to do, they're not going to do it. Ezekiel warned us of that behavior. Remember, Ezekiel chapter 33 said what? He said they love to hear the word. They love the shofar, the trumpet of war. They love, you know what I'm saying? How you say, the men crowd, the boys club. But see, when it really comes down, when those bullets start to fly, they're going to be outrunning them bullets in the opposite direction, many of our men, because they're not prepared. Their minds are scattered on too many other things. And brothers, I'm talking to you in particular, because you're not prepared, most of you. You don't even like the word war. That was just from a family of warriors. Many of my uncles fought in war. My grandfathers, all of them fought in wars. One of my grandfathers actually fought in the Civil War. I have all of the archives of the history of it. He fought in the Civil War on the side of the Union up in Vicksburg, Mississippi. All of my sons, I have 3 sons, all of my sons fought in the war. I'm not advocating, being a part of the military, but I'm telling you, when it comes down to standing up and defending, what we love, we have never fallen short of that responsibility. I've even served time in the military. And again, I'm not pushing, fighting for this heathen government that always use us for human fodder, put us out there on the front. to die for them so they can come back home and still call us niggas and every other word you can think of. Deprive us of everything that we had a right to, as they had a right to, since we were there. From George Washington, the Revolutionary War, to the most recent war, we were the ones who turned the tide of the war. There's not a war that America has been involved in that we showed up and did not take losers and make them winners. They'll never admit it, but it's true. From the Tuskegee Airmen to the 54th Massachusetts. Some of y'all heard about that. The movie Glory talks about it with Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman, Matthew Broderick. Remember the movie Glory? They were getting their butts handed to them again until the 54th showed up. But they were called every kind of name under the sun. But they didn't care about that because we had the heart for it. But things have changed since that. Because now they're giving us, how you say the games of war. PlayStation, Xbox. And so our men rather sit at home, and play Call of Duty on a game box than to take and come and learn the things that they need to learn to invoke Yahuwah's power. Because as you see here in Gideon, and we taught this on this past Wednesday night in the Tanakh study, Brother Mendez and myself hosted the study, as we always do for the most part. And we taught about, we taught from Judges chapter 6 and Judges chapter 7. And then myself and some of the daughters of Zion yesterday looked at chapter 8 and looked at, the spoils of war that Gideon and his family achieved because they were willing to go and fight, 10 toes down, 2 fists up. And let it not be, misunderstood by my brothers and sisters that when they said the Midianites that we fought against, they had Amalekites with them and they also had Nephilims with them, the giants. So Joshua and our brethren coming over to Jordan, they weren't the only one that had to fight the giants. Gideon had to fight the giants too. And those giants are still alive today. Not the ones we killed, but their seed. They're hidden behind the Arctic wall. What do you think CERN is all about? It was to release them. And they're coming back.